There's a lack of momentum when you're dealing with almost exclusively like miniseries, short form projects, stuff with like 6 issues every 10 months sort of stuff.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Eyes to approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and
W. Dal Bush. It's so bad. It's such a hideous name, Dal.
I tell you what, you just summed up the Challengers business model as a whole.
What's that?
If a book does really well for us, it's probably not selling in the market.
Yeah, we were just talking about Where Monsters Lie #4 that we were given preview copies of by Absolute Kyle Starks. And
along with previously issues 1, 2, and 3.
That's the thing. I was going to say that we had both read 1 through 3 rapidly, and then Kyle was like, "Did I never give you 4?" And you were like, "No, you never gave us 4." So he gave us both 4. You read it right away, and
he gave me 4. I gave it to you.
Thank you. I took my sweet time because I like making Kyle sweat whenever I can. But I did read it today, just a little bit before we recorded, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope to see more of it, but it's just a truism that the sort of books that we look for and we try and support are usually the ones that a company that the rest of the market would rather not exist. Like, one of our best-selling Marvel books, period, is She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a book that does really great in the market, but it's one that when we heard about it, we're like, oh, this is going to be really good. And it was, and we tried to put it in people's hands, etc. And we did the same thing with Where Monsters Lie, where, you know, that was an issue that the first 3 that we read, and we're like, wow, this is 3/4 of miniseries that we know is great. Let's make sure that people know about it. And then, you know, most retailers probably are not going to go to that trouble. They would rather just order more copies of Alex Ross Timeless variants or, James Tynion incentive covers or whatever. No disrespect to either one of those guys. We also carry that stuff. It also sells well for us.
Course.
But that's the stuff that is sort of the easier, like, I know there's a market for that and I can serve that market, rather than what else can I find out there? What other stuff are people not expecting? What stuff can I turn them on to that they don't know about? What market can I kind of create, you know? And that's usually where we look. And, I'm not going to say it's been a wild financial success over the last 15 years, but it's certainly been more enjoyable than just stocking the most straightforward stuff and then reaping the benefits.
Well, what makes it harder is that you do all this effort and this work to get somebody into a series that you genuinely enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Gospel.
But it's 4 or 5 issues.
Yeah.
And then you got to start scratch at something new. It's not like it is an ongoing series where if you get them into it in the first couple issues, you're good for the next couple of years on that book.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say something like, well, that's, why you'd maybe be more apt to recommend like a Marvel or DC book, but those get restarted too.
Yeah, constantly.
And every year or two, you're forced to kind of resubmit your recommendation to your customers to say, no, this new Wonder Woman series is good or whatever. But I was thinking, I mean, you're right in saying that, because I also read Great British Bump Off #1 from John Allison and Max Sarin, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think it's another 4-issue series.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll collaborate again on something else like they have for Giant Days and Wicked Things. But maybe they won't, or it won't be really soon, or it's another thing that will have such a huge gap on it that we'll have to, get back out there and stump for sales again. It's like, if Great British Bump Off was an ongoing series, maybe that would be something that if we sold really well in issue 1, there would be enough momentum to carry it through for 12 or 18 months instead of starting from scratch in the fall.
John Allison was on David Harper's Off panel about 2 weeks or so ago, and it was just a great interview with somebody who really understands the market, but also longs for a different market, like a market that, not the market he grew up with, but he worked really hard to have monthly comics coming out all the time with Giant Days.
Yeah.
And, he's done a ton
Giant
of...
Days was like 5-6 years, I think.
He did I don't know, like 65 issues or something?
It was in the low 60s.
But along with Giant Days, he did so many other properties, all in the same universe-ish.
Yeah, true.
But it was a really big deal to him to have a dedicated book every month, to know that people could go to the shop and have it waiting for them.
Yeah, and even in instances where I think there wasn't a monthly issue, there was still a one-shot or something else coming out.
But that is not today's market, and he laments that. And he laments that everything is 4 or 5 or 6 issue miniseries, and you have to start over and over and over again, and you don't, like, you have to build the trust with every story.
Yeah.
There's nothing that keeps people really coming back month after month as far as a specific single title. And the idea of, and this is me paraphrasing, not what he said, but
Sure.
the idea of the Wednesday Warrior is less and less all the time.
Yeah.
That's not to say there's not great books out there. That's not to say that people don't come in regularly, but the push to come in to get the new issue of whatever isn't as strong, because there's no, I don't want to say there's no history behind those titles, but there's no real longevity behind those titles.
Yeah.
And that's the market we live in, and it's never going back. And it's harder. We ourselves...
There's a lack of momentum when you're dealing with almost exclusively like miniseries, short form projects, stuff with like, 6 issues every 10 months sort of stuff. To really to create that sort of routine, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Routine has such a pejorative sense to it, but I mean routine in the like.
A routine is comforting.
Well, not even comforting, but like, this is something I look forward to every single week. I like going to the comic shop every Wednesday to see what new books are there. And I don't know if that's as constant between both the things that we already talked about, like miniseries and, a lack of every single month there's a book, but also just the ways that the shipping frequencies are sort of weird now, where, for the longest time it was, this week of the month, Batman comes out or whatever. And now it's like things kind of come out whenever. And you think it's going to be the first week of the month, but no, this time it's the 3rd week and then the 5th week. Or like I was lamenting, as the word is going to be used a lot probably this episode, to Molly Jane Challenger, that the current running Sins of Sinister event at Marvel, which is very good, is an alpha issue, a Dominion finale, and then 3 different 3-issue miniseries that run over 3 months. But they're also, each issue of the whole series is labeled as like part whatever. So technically it's like an 11-part series labeled as such.
But they don't flow into each other.
No, because each month, not to give anything away for people who aren't reading it, each month of publishing is a different span of time. We're moving along a 1,000-year run of stories, so each month we're kind of checking in a different snapshot of where the characters are at 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. The thing that drives me sort of crazy...
You mean Power of 10.
Sure. I mean, that's... again, without delving too much into this for people who are maybe not up to date or will check it out in a collection, it's very much paying off a lot of the Powers of 10 stuff that Hickman is not around to pay off anymore.
Yeah.
That's really where this story is kind of getting a lot of its grounding and the juice of it. But anyway, the thing that is frustrating to me as someone who does the Final Order cutoffs for Marvel is that the issues do not come out in the same order every single month. Month 1 it was Storm and the Brotherhood,
Immoral,
Nightcrawlers, Immoral X-Men.
Okay.
I think that was the order. But like month 2, it's like Nightcrawlers, Immoral X-Men, Storm and the Brotherhood. And then month 3 is Storm and the Brotherhood, Immoral X-Men, Nightcrawler. So it's like everything is just...
jumbled.
And when you're ordering stuff, it's like, so Nightcrawlers has like 3 weeks or less between issues, and then it has like 7 weeks between issues. And that's just like, what if you were only reading Nightcrawlers? That is going to be incredibly frustrating to try and follow.
Admittedly, I'm just reading Immoral.
It's good.
because I wasn't reading Way of X or
Okay. Or X-Men Red.
I was reading X-Men Red. I
Okay.
just fell off of it.
Sure.
I'm a couple behind.
Yeah, those are the books that those are most related to.
6 Wolverines behind. I'm 2 behind on every Hulk.
The only
Green, Grey, and She.
The only Sins of Sinister books, preceding Sins of Sinister, that you would really need to read to get into this, I think would be more just Immortal X-Men and Way of X. Legion of X? Legion of X. Because Legion
And
of
that's
X
the problem.
introduces a character
That
that's
is the
really
problem.
crucial to this
Way
story.
of X, Legion of X, it doesn't sell. Let's start it over with the same creative team, but change the title.
Right.
And now I can't keep straight which one was which. We had a club member in today who was... They'd added some books recently, and they
Okay.
wanted to make sure that they were getting everything.
Uh-huh.
And one of the books was... And hold on. X Factor.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stared. I'm like, what? X Factor. Like, there's no current X Factor series.
Nope.
And Gina's like, yeah, it just came out like a few weeks ago. I'm like, X Factor? And I look at both of them, I go, I'm behind on my X-Men stuff. Like, I'm current with X-Men.
Right.
I'm current with Immortal, but I don't read every X-Men book. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just missed something really big, I guess. Like, and Gina goes, well, do you mean the one where they were like solving the murders in Krakoa? I'm like, no, I read that one. And he's like, no. And Gina goes, oh, you mean X-Force? He's like, oh yeah, X-Force. I'm like, man, I was so confused.
Yeah.
Because it is completely plausible
I'm like,
that there's an X-Men book that I just forgot about because of all the name changes
Well,
and all the miniseries and all the switching of titles.
but that's the thing. Like, not only do you have the main X-Men continuity, which is very vast, but now they're adding in so many more, like, out-of-continuity things, like X-23 Deadly Regenesis and the upcoming Storm miniseries. And it's like, could they have done, like, a Peter David X-Factor thing and I just didn't read it? Like, yeah, that's entirely possible.
I thought maybe it might have been a couple of issues of
X-Men Legends.
X-Men Legends, because they did do the original X-Factor in there.
Yeah, I don't know if X-Men Legends is still a thing so much anymore, because I feel like they just spun a lot of those. Anything that was more than 2 parts, they just spun out into its own miniseries.
I got so confused when looking at the invoice for the week after next.
The 29th.
I'm like, what is X-Men Unforgiven? I don't even remember what that is. Oh, right, no, it's the one-shot
series
vampire
thing.
series. Yeah, okay. No, I got it. But it just took me a second. I'm like, I don't even...
That's fair.
Is that like X-Men Green?
Yeah.
It's like, what was
Oh, yeah.
I-
I mean, it's...
X-Men Unlimited versus X-Men Unforgiven? And man.
Yeah, it's a lot of content, and yeah, it's especially frustrating to me right now because the fact that they have so much stuff that is both in and out of continuity is, to me, a huge warning sign. Because I remember the last time they were doing that, where it was just like literally any project would get greenlit if there was even the hope of a tiny audience being there for it, because the market was that unhealthy. And the result of that was that, oh God, everything fell apart. And they basically had to bring in people who were like, let's burn it to the ground and see what we can build on top of it, because what you have will not stand.
And that was another point that John Allison had made, where he's been offered to write Marvel books, but he can't do it because what he wants to do isn't what they want. They just want content to put out, and he'd want to be like, no, let me show you how a Marvel book should be.
Right.
And basically what you just said, let's start it fresh and just like build forward. And he knows that the editors are just under pressure to put out content and move on and put out content,
Yeah.
and they don't have time to waste with somebody who's trying to reinvent the Marvel wheel.
Yeah, I'm sure with John Allison, they're just reaching out to him because it's like, hey, what's your favorite X-Men? Like, do
Yeah.
you want to write your favorite X-Men? Just do it out of continuity, pick an era, we don't care. Like, as long as there's a name to attach to it and something to sort of promote, like, you're good to go.
It was disappointing this week to hear that Chip Zdarsky turned down his third dream project from Tom Brevoort
Yeah.
because he just doesn't have the time.
Sure. His X-Men stuff's real good right now. And, I'm sorry, not X-Men. His Batman.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
Batman?
I'm like, what?
I was thinking...
Once again, I'm like, is there another X-Men book I don't know about?
Because I'm thinking to his Substack where he talks about Kingpin and Typhoid Mary and
yeah.
how they're going to be a big part of the X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
And that was not like a coincidence. That was him working with Jerry Dugan and Jerry Dugan being like, I got ideas for that.
He's so busy that we only got 2 pages of public domain today.
Very heavy dialogue pages, though.
Yeah, I mean, good pages, but just 2. I'm like, come on. Come on, man.
The good news is Daredevil's wrapping up fairly soon.
Why is that good news?
Because he's been on it for years, and this will
I
figure out
like
to do some
Daredevil.
different stuff.
I like his Daredevil.
He did it for years.
So, remember when creators used to stay on book for years?
He did. And now he's leaving because he
3?
told his
Does
story.
that count? Come on. Okay, fine. 60 some odd issues. Yeah, I get it. But the point is, they have to cast that net far and wide to get me as excited for whoever takes over Daredevil, because Marco Cicchetto, A-list artist,
Yeah.
just
He's
spectacular,
very
one
good.
of the best in the industry today, and Chip's Daredevil stuff has been really good, and Daredevil has not always had good.
I think he's had plenty of good runs. I'm looking right at the Daredevil by Mark Waid hardcovers that ran through a bunch of great artists and had a few different really cool arcs. I think Daredevil kind of has a lot of heat behind him always. Like, you've got the classic Frank Miller run. You've got...
Are you saying that because his helmet is on fire in
He's
that
a
graphic?
devil, Patrick.
Yeah.
Duh. You had the great Frank Miller run. You have the Ed Nocenti stuff with JRJR. You have the Bendis stuff. You have the Mark Waid stuff.
You have
the
Brubaker and Lark.
The Brubaker and Lark stuff. You have the Chip Zdarsky stuff. I mean, there's a lot of really huge runs by big name creators, either before or after they became big name creators.
Most of them aren't in print.
Yeah, Marvel are real bad at that.
Yeah.
But in general, I would not ever be shocked by another huge, great run on Daredevil by people I wasn't even thinking of right now. Chip Zdarsky would not have been the first name I would have suggested to write Daredevil.
Sure.
But he had a real great idea and brought some interesting nuance to it.
So the point is, often we complain on this podcast about how
Period. The end.
difficult the behind-the-scenes stuff in the industry as far as ordering and subscription management.
Yes.
And don't worry, we'll talk about some of that later. But
I didn't have a follow-up. I'm just agreeing with you.
this is a whole other aspect where it's so much harder to recommend comics because there's so many more comics to recommend, and their lifespan is negligible.
Yeah, I don't know that it ever really gets into my head where I'm like, do I want to bother promoting this because it's only 4 or 5 issues? A good book's a good book. And
But I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying that you have to do it so much more often than ever before.
yeah, what I was going to say was that in a given week, I'm still only ever promoting like 2 or 3 books. You know what I mean? Like, as far as hand
I
selling,
don't know. I watch your videos on Tuesdays, and you promote a lot of books.
do entire seconds spent promoting books, but it's not.
You know, one of the best compliments we got about our Tuesday night videos came from Gina today,
Oh, yeah?
who's like, every single week you guys get me to add at least one more book to my list. And that's honest to God why we do it.
I'm glad she was excited about that Scorpion cover to Miles Morales.
Who isn't? Did you see his face? He's all grizzled and...
Classic Spider-Man villain Scorpion.
Also,
on
it's funny
non-classic
because-
Spider-Man Miles Morales
Yeah,
book.
but classic Max Gargan Scorpion is fighting Miles Morales in that
He was in
series.
the first issue.
Yeah, he's still in it.
Yeah. I stopped reading it. I
I'm
didn't
just
like
saying.
the first
I'm
issue.
just saying it actually, that one fits.
Sure. I think it's interesting that Marvel, I don't think they planned on like a calendar specific books coming out in specific times to be able to
They
best take
definitely
advantage
don't.
of this. But I think it's interesting that they managed to plug in some of the variant covers to books that desperately need the help. Like Warlock Rebirth has the Thanos Alex Ross Timeless variant.
Really?
Warlock.
I didn't think they did it for miniseries and things like that
yeah.
previously.
Oh yeah!
Wow.
They're doing one for
Okay,
Red,
the
for
joke.
Red Goblin.
The joke is every Marvel book's a miniseries.
True. With
Or
the
Max.
speaking of the Alex Ross Timeless variants, with the last week of FOCs, we ordered more of the Timeless variant than we did for the A cover for Carnage.
I'm not surprised.
By a lot.
Is it Carnage?
I don't remember who it is. I'm sure it's not.
Yeah,
He wouldn't care.
See?
It could
I'm
be.
surprised there's a Venom on Venom.
It could. Yeah, is it on Venom? Because I was thinking like maybe they put the Venom one on Carnage. No, I'm sure it's just like another Spider-Man villain, like Sandman or somebody. I don't know. But they're doing them on like Warlock Rebirth, and Guardians of the Galaxy has Galactus, I think.
Not Ego.
No, don't think he did an ego for
Well,
that poster.
it wouldn't fit size-wise.
Yeah.
Speaking
I think
of
the Galactus one, I think, is just the face. I think it's anything else.
speaking of variant covers, here's a weird thing that I discovered last night for the next issue of Invincible Iron Man #4.
Yes.
It's coming out on the 29th,
Okay.
and there's a bunch of covers,
Yes.
except no A cover.
Is that just for us, or is that for everyone? Did you investigate it?
No.
Okay. So it might still happen. We don't
Yeah,
know for sure.
it just on our invoice for that day. And you did say, like, hey, you might be looking at the invoices too early. Like, they put it out. Don't put it out if it's not ready.
They did. It's true. I've usually not looked at the PRH pre-delivery reports more than a week out, so I don't know how accurate they are.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to do my job effectively.
I appreciate that.
One of the rare times.
Yeah, I don't want to dissuade you.
Too late.
No.
I am dissuaded. But yeah, there's like 4 or 5 variant covers, but no A cover on the invoice. But we definitely, in fact, have a record of ordering the A cover.
Yeah, it's not unheard of. There have been plenty of times, especially with DC stuff, where a random variant is like, it was on a different truck and you'll get it for your next week's order.
That's been happening the last couple weeks with DC.
Or even like partial fulfillment. But I can't really think of a time where the A cover from the publisher was pushed back a week. Like, we've had plenty of times where ours were shorted or all damaged or our box was lost or whatever. But yeah, I can't really think of a time where the publisher's been like, we're sending you all the variants. You'll get the main cover the week after. We'll see.
Yep. I have a Penguin Random House question. This is another segment, a reoccurring segment of Dal has to either teach or remind Patrick how to do basic functionality of his job.
Well, I am the CTO.
There was a box missing, or yeah, okay. So a replacement was sent out from
Yes.
Penguin Random House. That replacement box showed up today,
Yep.
along with all of next week's singles, but not next week's trades.
Next week's trades already showed up. They're in the box. They're in boxes underneath the table.
Oh, they weren't marked off on the sheet.
They came in before the sheet was done.
Oh,
They came
why
in,
is everything so early this
I
week?
don't know,
It's not
man.
a holiday.
They came in with the Wednesday UPS order
Okay.
before I even got on the computer.
So anyway, that box of replacement books showed up.
Mm-hmm.
How do those get logged in?
At this point, the best way to do it, you can check and see if there's an invoice for them on PRH's site. There might be, and then you would just download that and then upload that to the check-in process on Managed Comics. Or since it's only like 3 things, I'd probably just find additional items on it.
Okay.
But it does have to be received through Managed Comics.
Okay. That was the question. But my other question was, since it was mainly new stuff for this week, should we just hold it so it gets a Wednesday shelf space, or just leave it on an extra week?
Yeah, I would probably do the latter. I'd put it out as soon as possible. It's honestly, I mean...
Too late on that one.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't put them out yet.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Because I was going to say, I don't want to be mean about it, but it's not stuff that anyone's going to be, like, beating on the doors to get. Like, this, we've had missing boxes before, and if it's hugely sellable products, we are on the phone with a rep. We are trying to get somebody to, like, prioritize this and expedite a reshipment. This was a thing where, like, we waited till Wednesday, and then we were like, hey, we never got this box.
Yeah, well, first we wanted to wait to see if it was still on the truck or it showed
Yeah.
up or whatever.
Because the stuff that it was just, like, all ages graphic novels and, like, smaller ones, like Bat Pig and another copy of Hoops.
Yep.
And it's like, it'll get here when it gets here. It's fine. So if it went out already, great. If you wanted to hold it until Wednesday, fine.
Well, it's put 'em out tomorrow.
I would probably, just put it out on Saturday, and then we'll leave it on the shelf for another week, so it'll get like 11 days on the shelf.
Well, along that same regard, and this is, again, you're reminding me of a thing that I've forgotten how to do.
Okie doke.
When we get replacements or whatever, we got a couple of extra copies of the Emma Frost Wolverine cover. Mm-hmm. We got
Damage replacements. Yeah.
Chris Bocello, Miles Morales.
Yes. Okay. The Chris Bocello one specifically need to receive through Managed Comics.
That I knew because it had an MC on the invoice.
Yeah.
The other stuff did not.
And it should have gotten pulled for a subscriber?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Well, it said we wanted 2, but then it only pulled up 1 name, so
Great.
it went into Marco's box.
Yes, he was the remaining person who
Okay.
needed it, I believe.
I assumed that was the case.
Yeah, for the other stuff that doesn't have any designation to it, it usually just means it's a replacement order. So they would just get the quantities increased in Shopify. They don't need to be.
And that's all I
anything.
did.
That's all you did.
But one of the issues with, not an issue, but one of the situation around that is because I don't necessarily check in Marvel books, nor report shortages or damages.
Right, you're very outside the loop on it.
I don't know what's a damage replacement, what was ordered special, what was...
That's fair.
Yeah. And then, annoyingly, we got a large PRH order, all from one purchase order. Yeah. But then at the very bottom, there were 2 added-on trades.
Terrific.
That had a whole... that were not a stocky code.
Okay.
It was stuff that we had ordered for individual people. Okay, well, moving on.
Okay. Let's put a pin in that.
That assumes we'll get back to it. This Monday, I got to be on Car Con Carne again. I've been on it a couple times over the years.
Yeah.
And this was specifically to celebrate Challenger's 15th anniversary.
It's just coming up.
Some might say a plaque or award-worthy event. But it was a whole lot of fun because James Van Osdol, the host of Car Con Carne, Let's Eat in the Car, which we did, we ate in the car.
Oh, cool.
Chose Club Lago as the restaurant to go to, which is a place I'm well versed at.
You've been there once or twice.
And there's an audio version, there's a video version where you literally see me stuffing my face full of spinach pasta.
Okay.
Spinach fettuccine.
Okay.
And it was just a lot of fun. Half of it was talking about Lago and its history and anecdotes about them and their dad and history of the restaurant and the food we were eating. A lot of it was about challengers. And we were talking last week about how I was prepared for James to throw me curveball questions. It wasn't. It was all just business stuff and, how...
You're used to that.
How we pivot, how we are able to say, this isn't working, let's not do it. Mm-hmm. How another one of the Challenger's business tenets is if something works once, great. If something works great once, mm-hmm. it'll fail the second time.
Yep.
And so it was me and James in the front, GC and my friend Jessica in the back. Mm-hmm. And we alluded to this last week as well. We had a presentation to give James. Jessica and I got him an award. And it was just fun. And there's people who have no idea what Car Con Carne is, who have listened and said how much fun that episode was.
That's great. Hopefully they'll check out the library.
Because it was just laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
And shoving our face full of food. And yeah, James is a very strict editor. When he asks you a question, he has an answer he expects from you, or, mm-hmm. He doesn't really go in for rambling, which is all I do.
Right.
So he gave me some good leeway. There's a couple things I wanted to cover, and he gave me the runway to get to them.
Nice.
But a lot of it was just spontaneous and things like that.
That's great.
Yeah. CarConCarne.com. That's CarConCarne, mm-hmm. which when I was texting with Jessica about the episode after the fact, I was abbreviating it CCC, and she was abbreviating Challengers Comics and Conversation, CCC.
That's right.
However, I was able to tell by context what she meant.
Got it.
And the food was great.
It always is.
It always is. Eggplant parmesan, so good. The spinach noodles with just, a couple of cheeses on top, and that's basically it. No sauce.
Yeah.
Man, such a good place. Club Lago, River North, Orleans and Superior. But anyway, James is always fun. He has a lot of... It's mainly a music podcast. Mm-hmm. It could have been as well with all of my musical history behind me.
True.
But he chose to not have me sing in the car. I did offer him some Divorce Gun stuff like a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I go, hey, if you want a band that no one will listen to. He's like, yeah, you had me at no listeners. He is at... that was episode 825.
Goodness.
And he started after us, and we are on episode 629. We took some breaks in the early years.
We did, but and like you said, during the pandemic.
In the pandemic, he was doing 5 episodes a week.
Yeah, that'll catch up.
Yeah. So anyway, feel free to check that out. It was very entertaining. and then I spent time doing another interview. Two different interviews this week.
Wow.
One, I think I mentioned last week, but I couldn't remember who it was for. And I really put a lot of effort into that. And then at the end of it, before you could, because it was all a drop-down menu website with, like, you know, choose one of these questions, choose one of these questions. And I really put time into it, so much so that it took me way longer than I thought it was going to. The last step of the process is, hey, recommend 5 other people we can talk to.
Oh.
Like, give their name, give their socials or website,
Right.
and say why we should talk to them.
Neat.
Not neat. It would not let you submit the interview until you filled out all 5.
Okay.
Because I'm like, all right, I'll recommend 3 people. Fine.
No, 5.
Click.
Patrick.
No,
5.
I got to do 5. Gotta do 5. And now I can't help but wonder. I'm like, because at first when we got the, hey, Stella Cheeks has recommended you for this website, I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Thanks, Stella. Now it's like, did I just make other people get like spam? Maybe they won't be as excited as I was to do it. And then I took care of that Penguin Random House one.
Oh, thanks.
And so I was working on it yesterday, and normally when I'm doing it, when I was first asked about that other interview, I'm like, yeah, how do you want to do it? Like audio, text, like am I filling out a questionnaire? Like, oh no, it's all written. And each time I think, oh, I'm doing all the work for you.
Just let me ramble.
Yeah. I don't ramble when I'm typing it all up.
Right.
And when I do, it sounds a little incoherent because it's all typed. But when I was doing the other one, I have a tendency of answering a little bit of each question, then going back and filling in. But the previous one, I would answer a question, then move on. I'm like, oh, what I just wrote for that question fits better for this question.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't looked that far ahead. So I do all of the questions simultaneously and then build them out. Then I get to a point where I'm like, I'm tired. I know I was in mid-thought for this one. Let me just add a sentence to end it.
Sure.
But it already got a good review from the person I was doing it for.
Great.
And they pointed out things that when they ran a shop, they hadn't considered.
Oh, cool.
So, all right, that's good. I'm always willing to hog any open microphone or any type of interview space.
True.
Yeah, well, you know, it's for the benefit of the brand.
Sure.
And anything to help promote us on our 15th anniversary, 2 weeks from this very day of us recording.
It's true. March 31st.
We will literally 2 weeks from right now. Party starts.
Yeah.
The party
It
starts.
sure does.
And I realize I haven't done a lot of social media promoting for that. I've been handing out flyers and telling people,
That's cool.
like, hey, that's what you're doing. Especially when people are like, hey, you going to C2E2? No, I'm going to skip this here. Good, don't go to that. Come to this. Here you go. Here's a
yeah,
flyer.
you'll be in town.
Yeah. So there it is. It'll be, just for regular customers, not, creators or anything. Creators will definitely be there.
Right.
So, yes, there is that. But that is coming up. And since we were talking to James about it, it simultaneously feels like 15 years is nothing. No time has passed.
Right.
And also an eternity.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I don't remember a previous life.
Yeah.
Even though I told a whole bunch of stories from there.
Weird to think about.
Yeah. Also, doesn't Challenger still feel new to you?
Yeah, very much so.
Right. 15 years old.
Yeah.
Can almost drive. You know what always feels new to me, Dal?
What's that, Patrick?
Segway.
Oh, go on.
Manage Comics, because of all the effort they're putting into to
Yes.
make it better at all times. Here
Sure.
are 2 positive things I want to point out this week.
Please do.
Changes that were made or will be made that make life a little bit easier. One of them that you had mentioned to me because I hadn't noticed, but I noticed it a bunch today.
Yeah.
On the special order approval screen, when somebody asks for an item that is not a subscription, but an individual issue or a graphic novel, now when it lists what that item is, it has the final order cutoff date at the end of the title.
Yes.
So you know...
You don't have to click the item to find out when the order cutoff is.
Because in theory, people can't order a book past FOC.
Correct.
But sometimes they still can.
Yeah, and additionally, the bigger problem is when orders come in while you're submitting final orders to a distributor. So it definitely helps when you're proving stuff to go, oh wait, that's on the one that I just did, so let me make sure I add another copy to our order, instead of just approving it thinking, well, it'll go on the next order. Like, no, that was the one you just did. So that's very helpful for me doing Lunar and PRH FOCs on Sundays and Mondays.
So that's just a set thing. You guys don't vary it up anymore. It's just...
No, Molly does Diamond and I do the other two.
Okay.
Which is why occasionally I'm like you with Diamond stuff coming in, where I don't do initial orders, I don't do FOCs, I don't check it in.
Yeah.
I don't pull those days, so it's just like...
What's come out? I don't know. It's weird how we... There's no rhyme or reason behind how we divvy up who does what category for the New This Week videos.
Right.
And this is a week where I should have done indies because I really wanted to hype No One because I'm the only one who had read it ahead of time.
Yes.
But I had just done indies the last several times I did it.
Sure.
I feel we need to vary it up.
Okay.
And I needed to take DC away from you because that's all you ever want to do is DC
I
Comics.
keep demanding it.
So we needed to make it different.
True.
But my go-to is always going to be the indies because I literally just spent that day unpacking them.
Yes.
So it's way fresher in my mind.
And also, we're more likely to get preview PDFs from independent publishers than we are from Marvel or DC.
Yes.
So you're more likely to have read those things instead of Marvel or DC, which maybe you read them when we get them in Sunday or Monday or whatever, but sometimes you don't. You don't have time.
Yeah. You know what I read? Jump around a little bit. I read Rachel Gold, One Bad Day.
I read that today as well.
First of all, gorgeous. Art's so good. Ivan Reis, so good.
Yeah, it's a little Al Williamson in places, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
I'm a big Al Williamson guy.
I enjoyed the art very much, and I thought it was a really great Rachel Gold story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it fits the One Bad Day concept, but I think a lot of them haven't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of does, and it's just delving into that character's perspective and giving them more of a spotlight than Batman.
But I couldn't point the day. What's the One Bad Day?
Oh, it's not. It's
that's the thing.
Well, it's never going to be that because that subheading is just a Killing Joke reference.
Right.
Like, the line from the Killing Joke is more just the idea of, Batman and Joker going different directions. If it had been the similar things happening to one or the other, then maybe one of them would have been Batman and one of them would have been the Joker. That's not the point of the rest of these stories.
Next, can you explain Mouse to me?
I sure can. So the One Bad Day is just branding. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just a thing to get you to think, like Killing Joke. That's it.
I think it's a great Ra's al Ghul story. It's weird to have it out now because in continuity he's dead.
Is he?
Yeah.
I can't keep track.
That was the whole the Josh Williamson
I
Batman
wasn't reading
story
that.
arc. Yeah.
Nope. Skip that one.
Yeah. So I thought it was good. I didn't read the Clayface one because we didn't have it for too long.
Oh.
And I know you guys raved about it, but I think the Rachel
really
Gold one
liked
is
it.
my favorite.
Yeah, I think Clayface is probably my favorite so far.
Okay.
I think I've liked them all generally. I didn't think the Two-Face or Penguin ones were that much to talk about.
Yeah.
And the Catwoman one was all right, but it didn't really feel, like it was really explaining anything new to me about the character.
Except her whole mom and the brooch.
And her sister that works at a retail store or something. Yeah, I thought the Rachel Gold one was good.
Getting back to Magic Comics, the other thing is a thing that we were aware of, and it was a thing you figured out that is confusing people a few weeks ago, and then someone else, our good friend Michael Lee, pointed out this week as well. At the top of our website, there's a search bar. And anything you search in that search bar is searching for saleable items on our site.
Right.
You type in Avengers number 8, and if it's available, which right now it isn't.
Or if basically anything we've ever received into the store that we have not archived for some reason. So even if it's out of stock if we have gotten it before, it might still come up in the search.
If it is for sale or has been for sale, it can come up in the search.
Yes.
Now, when you go to the subscription button, which is basically the Manage Comics portion of the website, there is a second search bar, like a third of the way down that page.
Right.
That search bar is specifically for subscriptions of upcoming books and special orders.
You're searching the Managed Comics database at that point, not Challengers Comics.
Yes, you are searching the Managed Comics database to find a book to subscribe to or to special order. Not for things that are for sale on the site, but at the same time, if you go to the top search bar and try to search for a new comic, let's say Great British Bump Off, you put it in that search field, nothing will come up because we've never received it and never had it for sale.
Yep.
So specifically on the subscriptions page, there's two separate search bars that both each just say search. So when pointing that out, you brought it to Brian's attention at Managed Comics.
Yeah.
And they have come up with a quick and easy solution. And that search bar will inside say search subscriptions.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be enough to let people know that if you're looking for subscription books, things to subscribe to, that's the box you search in. I'm sure we'll still get people who are like, yeah, I tried searching for World Tree and I couldn't find it. And it's like, well, you need to be in this box instead of this box.
Also, you have to use a
it's
zero
not
and
not an O.
threes.
Threes everybody gets. The zero trips everybody up.
Yeah.
And it probably always will.
I had a friend of mine message me today asking if we could sign him up for Dungeons and Dragons Saturday Morning Adventures.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
Searching for that book is interesting because, number one, it's listed in the system as adventure, but that whole line is Saturday Morning Adventures with an S. And then it's Dungeons and Dragons spelled out, but it's not.
No?
Like, it took too many tries. I'm like, I know this book is in the system. How? Look. And I eventually found it.
For sure. The thing I've told people before when they have trouble finding some stuff that they're not sure on the spelling, you can also search by publisher, if you know the publisher, and just go through alphabetically, and eventually it'll come up. But that, again, requires knowing what the publisher is. So maybe that's not a good
IDW.
use. Yeah.
So those are just two brief examples of things that Managed Comics has been on top of, and how willing they are to work with retailers at all times to make the entire process better for everybody. Their hands are hampered, they're hampered all the time by bad data, changing data, weird Shopify changes, or things that Shopify says, no, you never were supposed to be able to do that. How have you been able to do it for the last 8 months or whatever? But anyway, we appreciate their
Very much so.
willingness to always try to make life easier. Because honestly, that's the point of all of this.
True.
That is the point for all of it.
Yeah.
Making it easier.
Agreed.
Changing gears, there is a friend of my brother who has a dog charity, Spay Illinois. I don't know if it's .org or what have
Charity
you.
for dogs or charity run by dogs? Or both?
I never asked those questions.
Ooh.
So in taking in donations for, I don't know, like sometimes, charities ask for money. Sometimes people say, hey, we don't have money. What about this? Somebody donated to them a bunch of boxes of comics.
Okay.
Now, it's not like someone's collection.
Okay.
These are all in the boxes from the original printers.
Okay.
And most of it is like mid-90s DC books.
Okay.
But most of it is also quantities.
Sure.
Like
Sounds like it.
tens of whatever.
Okay.
Like, Impulse or Adventures of Superman or
Weird.
whatever. So George brought it showed it to me saying, hey, what can they do with this? And I did not see every book in every box.
No.
But mostly what I saw would be in our Down on Any back issues.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, what they could do is they could go to a local store near them. I'm not sure what city this charity is in. It's somewhere Chicagoland-ish.
Okay.
And bring it in and see if whatever store wants to buy it, but also really hit up the fact that this money is for charity. We're not trying to send someone to college. This was given to us to raise money for our organization.
Sure.
And then I thought maybe we could do something with it. Like if we get those boxes, and I don't know how many books it is, but I don't think it's more than like a dozen long boxes.
Okay.
We could do like a 1-day sale.
Okay.
And all the money from those books goes to that charity.
Sure.
Like $2 a book would be my guess based off of it.
Yeah. Based off the one title that you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what kind of draw it would be and how many people would bring in.
Right.
And I don't know if it's worth the effort of hauling all these boxes in, setting up a table somewhere to be like, hey, here's your $56.
Right. Yeah, I mean, without really knowing what's inside, yeah,
But we're not gonna know until
Right.
we get it.
Right.
So I had said to George, I'm like, maybe we could do something. He's like, oh, ask them. I go, do not ask them. Let me talk to Dal first, and then we'll decide if it's a thing we want to do.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if it's a dozen boxes or less, I think it could be just a fun thing to try.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody interested in the organization? Then again, it's Spey, Illinois, and I have no idea. I'm sure it's a .org.
Yeah, you'd think, right?
Something like that. Something like that, probably. Well, the flow to this episode was interrupted a little bit, so now I'm not entirely sure where we are as far as time goes.
Huh. Let's assume that we're good on time.
We're definitely not good on time.
Oh no.
And we have gone through all of my notes.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think of Shazam, Dal?
Oh, I didn't care for it very much. It was a very 2 out of 4 star movie.
Well, it was number 2, so that's fair.
There you go.
Yeah.
Shazam 2 out of 4 stars. I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. I don't think they got the tone of Shazam right all the way through. And the villains were completely forgettable. Which is weird because Shazam has kind of a roster of villains, and they were just like, I don't know.
In a post-credit scene?
Yeah, he just fights, Greek demigods. That's it. Like, okay, like why would you not want to see Shazam fight a supervillain or supervillains or something? Yeah, it just felt like a weirdly Wonder Woman-less Wonder Woman movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that to be a huge time topic.
Mm-hmm.
But I have...
Sure. I understand.
Yeah. Apparently there was a big X-Men announcement that I wasn't aware of what it was. At this point, the solicits for next month's books are up. We're at the point in the month where not only am I doing this podcast right now, but this is the week where the orders have to go in for May. So it's a lot of after hours, work from home, numbers plugging in, all that kind of stuff. And it is definitely, I do this 12 times a year, but it's my least favorite weekend of the year because of how much extra work it is. Not extra work. It's not extra, it is work. It is the main crux of this is ordering the product. But at the same time, this is when the companies release, because Previews is out next week. This is when everyone releases, not next week, the week after. The week after the orders go in. What's coming up in the future. And some stuff has been, I don't look at it too far in advance because I don't want it in my head when I'm doing the previous month's orders because it'll confuse me. Which, as you'll all notice, it's easier and easier to do. So, I was looking at some of the things that were coming out, and mainly DC books, and I don't remember them. It was just this afternoon. But I do remember looking through it and thinking that for the first time in years, it feels like DC has a cohesive plan, and they're trying to streamline things. The issue of Nightwing that's going to go on sale looks spectacular because it's all from Dick Grayson's point of view. It's like a first-person POV video game. You will go through Bloodhaven looking through his eyes. So while you'll only probably see like, an arm or a leg as he's swinging across buildings, or maybe hair flopping down in front of his eyes. You won't necessarily see Nightwing or Dick Grayson fully in the book, but I think that is another example of how Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo are just breaking all the boundaries in that comic. They had that one single panel issue. Was it 86? Maybe was the issue number. That was spectacular. They're constantly doing new and inventive things and trying to push what the 20-page single issue floppy comic can be. And that's a reason to get excited and to come in and to want to be there on the day the book comes out. There's a lot of... No, you know what I was going to say? There's new number ones, but those are the ones that I'm ordering this weekend because I started the DCs first. So again, it's too confusing and I get distracted and I start to merge the months in my head. And I haven't looked at all at Marvel, but I feel like there were bigger announcements that we've missed and haven't mentioned. An upcoming Dark Horse book that I think looks real good is Matt Kint's Hairball. It's about a family that has a black cat, and whenever the black cat is around, horrible, horrible things happen. But it may not be the cat's fault. The cat may be, I don't know, the good guy? Who knows? It's a miniseries, I think 4 issues, and it is one of the next PDFs I'm about to attack when given the chance. But PDFs and advanced looks have to get pushed back a little bit because this is, again, tonight is all this podcast and editing and getting that ready for patrons and for the main release. And then the next couple days will be doing all the initial orders. So with that in mind, I think I will get to that. And I do feel like we missed the hour cutoff, but there's no rule. It has to be an hour. We just like giving people an hour. Feel free to check out Car Con Carne episode 825, and feel free to come back next week for what is hopefully a full-length, uninterrupted episode. Thanks for listening, and keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.